continue item 12 on the agenda. This is the draft letter of expectation from Christchurch City Council to CCHL, the holdings company. Over the break, over the adjournment, we've made some suggested changes to that draft, and they were made by councillors Coker, Keown and Johansson, and we're going to put them on the screen, and we'll be debating these with the agreement of the mover and seconder, that being Mike Davidson and Pauline Cotter. We would put them in as the letter to be under debate. All right. So in the first instance, and can I just get an indication from you both that, given you know what's being proposed, that you're willing to have these, if agreed by all councillors or the majority, becomes the letter under debate, so then we can really talk meaningfully about this. You okay?
Yeah, I'm happy that the amendments that have been put forward from the other councillors are included into the substantive now, instead of putting them up as amendments, and I guess...
Yeah, and we'll talk through them. And the seconder? Fine, thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, right, so heading through from the top, the amendment is in yellow. It's by Councillor Coker, as you can see, and it's just removal of divestment of.
So are you going to ask officers to comment?
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Would you like to comment
changes are made, have been
about
made.
the changes? You're aware of the changes. Yeah. Do you have any comments on them?
Yes, to remove the opportunity to divest non-performing companies, or where the environment's changed, and Redbus would be the one of note where they have lost, they lost the tenders, and therefore the whole reason for Redbus existing was no longer there, and therefore that we shouldn't restrict CCHL from making a decision, or at least having the inquiry as to whether companies should be divested.
Okay, so this is not a debate, and it's
No,
more discussion just to get us forward.
me for a comment.
So
Just a comment, that's all.
It's just a comment.
And yes, and from Councillor Coker as the promoter of this, how do you feel about that? About leaving the divestment in?
I think, well, it's clear what our meaning there, and I think I'll leave it to the meeting to decide whether they accept or not accept.
Pauline?
Staff, if the word divestment was removed, that would not prevent CCHL from considering a divestment if they found it necessary. Is that correct? Yes. So it doesn't have to be there.
No, I think what we're wanting though is that we realise we have limited resources, and the resources should be applied to where you can get the best return. Hence the need to divest in some cases. But you're right, it doesn't stop CCHL themselves from doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Jimmy?
What's the difference between the term divestment and the disposition or possess? What's the difference?
Between divestment and disposal.
And
disposal.
dispose.
None.
Same. Exactly same.
One's got more letters.
Okay.
Clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to know.
Any other questions? Anne Galloway?
Thank you. Just whether there is investment or divestment, then CCHL has to come to us to bring proposals. They can't just go ahead and do that. Is that correct? That's correct. So they have to come and talk with us in order to make a decision.
Ian, can you talk to that, please? Just strategic.
I guess it depends on how major it is. And, we've got to remember that CCHL executives, staff executives, the chief executive of both, they talk to each other on a regular basis. And, if there's any proposal that the that CCHL is considering around divesting or disposing of an asset, you would expect that that conversation would have been had and a determination made as to whether it needs to come to the council to be considered.
So just following on, if we took the word divestment out, would that mean that they actually couldn't do that?
No, it wouldn't stop them from
No, it
doing
wouldn't
that
stop
at all.
that.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron?
So just to check, if we go with this amendment, could that have major financial implications for our group of companies and in turn the council?
Only if the board made the decision not to divest anything because they felt they couldn't. So no, I don't think so. I just think it would largely go on. We're just trying to send a clearer direction on what we are looking for the board to do.
Right, okay, cool.
Councillor Scandrett via Zoom.
Thank you. I guess one of the questions when we talk about divestment is, and Ian mentioned with regards to the scale of it, when we talk about in the original version, there was for the greater good of Christchurch. So the thing there that was missing was actually its contact with council. And with the terrace example, you know, we need to know all the risks, and I don't believe we have those. And with the original letter, the only time that is really mentioned is when it's with climate change. And I think, you know, any major move like that from one of our companies through CCHL has to be discussed with the council, because the council's focus is on the greater good for Christchurch, and sometimes the companies like CAAL and others are looking at what's best for them in relation to the city. And I think there is a difference there, and I think we're still slightly missing that. And I'm just wondering how we could amend that, or remedy that, I should say.
There is a comment about considering the whole of Christchurch perspective. That's at the bottom of page 1, so under the prosperous economy. So we have recognised that sometimes they need to consider the whole of Christchurch rather than just the company itself.
And with that, I totally agree. But the part that's missing for me is where were the risks in the risk analysis, and we never saw that. And there are risks. I've asked these questions about the specific things which I won't mention in public, and I'm still concerned about those. And that's not covered, I don't believe, or it should be covered in that last paragraph you've mentioned, Di, with regards to maybe just a good relation or good communication with council with regards to the definition of what's good for Christchurch.
Look, I don't have the statement of intent in front of me, but it's quite a lengthy document that covers off communications, contact, heads up, no surprises, meeting the objectives of the council, all those sort of things. This is just simply a letter of expectations of what is to go into, or what the council expects to see in the statement of intent. Once we see that, you maybe you'd like to comment on the contents of the statement.
Perhaps it's better that I talk offline with you, Ian, to kind of establish what I'm really concerned about.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
I think it's also important to understand that this is a step in the process, is the letter of expectation. It's not the end game. It's the opening gambit. Mm-hmm. Right. Any other comments or questions about this amendment? Phil? Yes.
Right, I feel that my view is it should stay in, because we don't want to tie these guys up to that they're scared to make a decision. We're giving them the licence to invest in things, and if they've got something that's a fizzer in front of them, they should be able to just say, oh, we don't want this, we're out of here, instead of having to run back to us all the time. But that's just my view.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have had that answer that this does not stop them from doing that. Taking that word out does not stop them from doing that.
Some people take what's written as the real thing, but anyway.
I think good governance would.
Okay, so this is a proposed amendment, and is there any opposite? You don't need to. We'll put it in one go. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to the and see the in the next paragraph down, just go back up. The original motion is there, and that's the but we'll get Councillor Davidson to talk about that when we put the motion, all right? And he'll discuss it in debate. Right, next to the next one, please. The next amendment. Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. Carry on. Yanni?
I just wanted to raise the concern with this particular section, and I'm very supportive of this amendment. I'm concerned that the context of the wording around here really focuses on value for money and efficiency rather than some of the other social, cultural and environmental outcomes that we should be believing in. And I know someone's given the example of Red Bus. I don't know how many councillors were here when we had a public deputation to a long-term plan or an annual plan that talked about why Red Bus was such a good bus operator in terms of the way the buses were operated. So sometimes things may not make a lot of money, but they provide a community benefit that's important to our city. If strategically, for example, we wanted to have a public transport operation in the city, then, you know, we've really lost that opportunity by what we've done, in my view. So I think decisions like that should be coming to the full council, and I would be very supportive of including divestment being deleted from this section, especially because of the context for the other things that's in here.
All right, any other comments, questions?
This is why I'm saying that those decisions do come to council, like Red Bus came to council. So, yeah.
I will add from the chair too, though, that the primary issue with Red Bus was that they didn't get the contracts, so they weren't going to get revenue.
The key important thing to repeat, Councillor Cotter has just said, there are rules in which what comes to council and what doesn't, and major decisions of strategic importance do come, and you decide. Red Bus came to this council.
Right, to the next amendment, please. Amendment in governance, and Councillor Coker has suggested that take the and pause. Do you want to just talk that quickly, please?
All I'm wanting to do is to get both a report and a briefing that explains what's in the report so that we can have a discussion.
Any questions about that? Thank you. Right, to the next amendment in the next paragraph. Councillor Coker again. We can see it, how they complement the balance of the board. Could you just describe a little bit about that?
The reason for this is just so that the councillors can have a deeper understanding of when CCHL recommends appointees to boards. Yeah, that's basically it. So it's to see if there's a board and they are looking for a new appointee, what the makeup of that board is and what skills and diversity and all those things that those people have and where the gaps are and how a proposed appointee fills those gaps.
Okay. Any comment from staff on this? Not necessary. Okay, any comment from council? Sorry.
My comment is I have no issue with that. I think it's a good amendment.
Okay. Councillors, members? Anne?
Just wondering if we just scroll back down, is this already covered in the process and presented from you on the process you conduct to appoint members to boards? Isn't that the sort of thing that would be involved in that? Do you no?
I thought it was appropriate to put that amendment because I believe the first paragraph is a general process rather than the second paragraph being more specific about particular board appointments.
Compliment. Yeah, okay. Clear? Any other comments on this amendment? No? Right, to the next one, and we'll carry on with Councillor Coker's amendments.
Gone too far.
That's the yellow one here. No, we'll go to the yellow one first. And can you comment on that for us to start off with, Melanie?
The purpose of this was just to make the sentence more clear, because the way that I could originally interpret it is that people, the employees or could be given bonuses, and I'd rather that we weren't giving bonuses based on performance, but rather decreasing people's remuneration if they're not doing a good job.
Which is the risk-based
Yeah.
component you're talking about. Okay, any comment from staff? Firstly, okay, councillors. Any issues with this as an amendment? Anne?
Just wondering if you could just clarify a little bit more what you mean by this. I'm not really sure.
Could I ask staff to comment on it? Because it was Diane who gave the, or do you want me to?
Diane, please.
I suggested that because Councillor Coker was concerned that bonuses were only add-on bonuses, and I did point out that in a lot of circumstances a person's remuneration has a risk-based component to it, so that they have a salary, but a chunk of that is at risk. So if they're not performing, it is at risk. And so it was addressing Councillor Coker's concern. I thought adding that might make it clearer and address her concern about bonuses always being on top rather than holding people to account for performing.
Comfortable with that? Anne?
Just a bit worried that it's linked to performance and how, you know, that's the worry. Do you see that being a risk in itself? Performance-based pay, sort of.
Or hopefully it means that they will perform. I wasn't against the idea of remuneration being linked to performance as such, but more that people could get additional bonuses and pay greater amounts if their performance is deemed to be good. And we're wanting obviously good performance, but we want to know the cap on people's pay, I suppose, is what the purpose of this is.
In this case, there's been some wording removed that actually could have been misinterpreted as bonuses, so this tidies it up.
I think it's a bit more, it clarifies it, that with the risk-based wording in there. Yanni, you have a question, comment?
Just going to ask, would this mean, like, you know, COVID-19 hits, we lose a lot of income from our companies, so their performance is way down, that the CIO salaries get reduced in line with that?
Why would you do that?
I don't think we can comment on that.
No, it's not within that. It's not their problem.
No.
Would it not depend on what the arrangements are? Remember, this is within the commercial within the companies, and it'll be prescriptive as to what the component remuneration
Well, I guess
aspect is.
the flip side is, say we get a major earthquake and suddenly we get all this stuff coming in through the port and their volumes are going up. Does that mean that they get the rewards?
Well, my answer to that is that it's written in black and white for them, and that's how they operate.
Okay.
And that's the way it should be, let's be fair. It's contractual. Yeah? Aaron?
Yeah, I think the key word there that Melanie's left in is performance. So those are external issues that is not part of the person's performance. They're an influence on the organisation, but not their actual performance. So when there's a review of their performance at the year, and at DHB it's called at risk, so there's a percentage of the CE salary for my last 9 years there it was that we had, they had a salary and they get all of the salary if the board agrees that the at-risk portion is paid. So that's how it was done there. So it's not strange to this town.
Okay, any other questions? Right. Are there any more amendments below that? I can't see the whole thing. All right, then we go back to the one in green, which is Councillor Kewen. And could you just speak to this amendment to start us?
Yeah, so it was just adding into, we've often said for years about the restraint referring to the top end, but I mean the top end salaries are operating in a field where lots of people are paid those sort of salaries, but the real issue's more, it's not about the top end so much, it's the bottom end and the gap between the two. So this is just to say to them, hey, look, if you're moving salaries, don't be moving the top end, because 3% of $500,000 is a lot different to 3% of $20,000 in actual dollar terms. So it's about addressing the gap. So that when you do only percentages, the gap grows. And so it's about addressing that, because, you know, like someone told me last week, plumbers and drain layers save more lives than doctors every year globally. So work that out.
So you've put it on the table to be added to the letter of expectation. Can I just get any comment from the staff, if any?
I only made the comment before that there's a bit of disjunct between expecting CCHL to exercise restraint in the level of senior executives and narrowing the gap between the highest and the lowest remuneration, because it's not just the higher level, which we were talking about in that first sentence. The second point that Councillor Kewen is making covers the whole gambit of the CCHL family. That's fine. It's his view, or the view of the council is that it could be best demonstrated. There may be a response from CCHL to that.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the members? No? Okay. Right. Those are the amendments to the letter. There's an additional resolution has been proposed by Councillor Johansson, and now we see it here in the green, number 2 there, because number 1 is, we'll be looking at this updated version as we've just discussed. Number 2 here, this is an additional resolution. So I'll give you a moment to have a look at that, and then I'll ask Councillor Johansson to speak to it. Oh,
I'm happy to second it.
hang on. We're adding this to it, to the whole thing. You'll have a chance shortly. So do you want to speak to it, Yanni? I've got you, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, as councillors may be aware, we have in 2016 asked for a governance manual of how we give direction to our companies and how we work with them, recognising the shortfalls. That was 2016, the start of 2016. So it's nearly 5 years later and we still don't have it. But in the meantime, the government, as I understand it, have changed the legislation and they now enable us to do what they call a statement of expectation. And I was really taken when I read the Auckland Council review into CCOs around the use of that versus the letter of expectation. And what was quite clear from that report was that letters of expectation are often too vague, that they don't really address the strategic issues, and that there's a better mechanism which is called a statement of expectation. So I'm suggesting, rather than have a big debate today about all the different issues, which I would have preferred, but we're pretty short on time, that we look at that new mechanism to address things like, and this is according to the legislation and the Auckland Review, how CCHL could conduct relations with the governing body and community boards, Māori entities in the public, the council's expectation of CCHL and individual CCOs, and generally, the extent to which the council, and I think this is really critical, to which the council expects CCHL to consult it when developing significant plans or strategies with its companies. And the final one is the council's expectations about chief executive salaries and tenure. And I just see that the world has moved on and we can be a lot more prescriptive, but we need to get the advice on what's possible. And so looking at the statement of expectation with some more detail and advice on February when we're doing the governance manual makes sense. And it may have a bit of overlap with the letter of expectation, but I think we should be open to it, especially because of what we've heard this morning, but also because of some of the fundamental problems we've had with getting issues like remuneration addressed in the past.
Thank you. I'll say from the chair and as the chair, thank you for using this method of progressing your kaupapa. Okay. So firstly, any comment from staff? I'll come to you in a minute, Tim.
We we discussed this morning, we touched on it earlier on, and yes, there is the new provision in the Act for a statement of expectations, and we're quite happy to engage in the conversation around how that might fit in. It's not a mandatory requirement in the Act. The council may elect to issue a statement of expectations, so let's explore that and get detail around it.
And
to-
just,
yeah.
thank you, Chair. And to follow up from Ian, I think it's important that the report describes exactly what is in the Auckland report and what the similarities to what the situation in Christchurch is and what the differences are, so that you understand what you're making your decisions on, and that's fully and clearly explained in the report to Finance and Performance Committee in February.
Thank you. I'll go to Tim Scandred on Zoom now.
Thank you, James. I'll withdraw my question because I really do need to do some homework on the difference between the statement of expectation and letter of expectation, but thank you very much.
Be here on the 25th of February.
And you'll get the answer.
Any questions or any comments around the from the members? Mike?
Just one thing, and I guess it's for Councillor Johansson. I'm happy, and it's up to Pauline as well, to actually have this included straight away into the substantive, and there does not need it to be moved as an amendment.
Okay. Any other comment?
I was quite keen for it to be separate because I have in my view, this is a better process to get some of the things we want in terms of the letter expectation. So.
But as you said, time is important
Oh yeah,
to
as
us.
long as it's two separate
deal
resolutions, I'm happy for it just to be incorporated into the.
Yeah. It's
the
in
main.
the, so
Yeah,
I'm now going to ask the mover and seconder that whether you agree to having that second part and those amendments in your motion.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, so now I open the meeting to debate. That is what we're debating above us, so that we're clear. The updated version with all those colours is what we're debating. So I open the debate. Oh, the debate's closed? Okay, Anne.
So I believe in transparency, and I believe that we are working towards becoming more transparent in our decision making. I believe in community involvement in decision making, and I believe we're also moving well into a much stronger position. But I also believe that we must build strong and respectful relationships with our partners and our family, our council family. As a council family, we need to be able to have opportunities to work things out privately, as in any family, before we go out to the public with decisions, and to give them the opportunity to feed back to our decision making. So this is fundamentally, I think, about trust. And for example, CCHL, the phrase in here in the LOE is CCHL should make such trade-offs as it considers appropriate from a whole of Christchurch perspective. That statement indicates to me a level of trust that we're putting in them, that CCHL has the right people in place to deliver in a way that is appropriate, and this is also from the LOE, appropriate from a whole of Christchurch perspective. So we're indicating through this that we want CCHL to address climate change, develop stronger planning and reporting frameworks to address this, to address diversity in appointments, to exercise restraint in remuneration, and to take into account the public service nature of this role that they have. We want them to implement the living wage. And that seems to me, that they are really key and important things. It seems that we are running a risk that as council, we want to micromanage our council-owned organisations. And I think that this could have the effect of reducing the mana of our CCHL. And I think the LOE is a high-level strategic document The details need to be addressed in the SOIs, which are still to be determined. And I look forward to an opportunity to work with CCHL and to nut out those SOIs so that we all achieve what we hope for through working together. I will be supporting what's in front of us today.
I wasn't quite ready to speak. I hadn't thought of anything that much, but I just wanted to say really briefly that I think this is great that for the first time in, I don't know how long, because I've only been here a year and a half, but for the first time in a very long time, I suspect that this has been a process that we've done openly and with the public. And you know, as their representatives, it's not good enough for us to abdicate our responsibility to ensure that the company, all our companies are delivering on their values, and I believe that the people of Christchurch do want to see stronger action on climate change. They do want a living wage implemented, and they want salary restraint at the top as well. I don't think this letter necessarily ticks all those boxes, but it's been a really good exercise in transparency today.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Councillor Chen.
Thank you. Yeah, I think today is quite significant because we have, this kind of discussion, Q&A, and also debate under the circumstances open and transparent, because all those ratepayers, all those people, community, they are all ratepayers. They are concerned, the council money, particularly for those value for money. So they are very eligible to fully understand all the policies regarding to this issue. Particularly this the letter of expectation. We are all aware there's a high-level strategic document. So we give the proper strategic direction to all the council control on the kind of trading company or the organization through the CCHL. So our strategic direction should be more kind of strategic view, and also need to fully comply with the council's strategic priority as well as our kind of community outcome. That's the kind of high priority. I'm so happy, regarding to this draft one, at least, generally we fully comply with this direction. The other one is absolutely no any kind of document is perfect. It's impossible. So that's why the council we consist of management one and also the governance one. We working together can make this the city, the community more better. Today better than yesterday. Tomorrow better than today. Future better than tomorrow. That's very crucial. Very important. Generally speaking, I'm very happy because while this strategic document consists of 5 categories: prosperous economy. At the moment, that's very important. We are all aware we are under the specific circumstances of COVID-19, still under this kind of the bigger impact. How do we to overcome those recovery? We need to working together. Council, all the strategic, all those the partnership, as well as wider the community, the people. We all working together to make it happen. The other one to how to vitalize our economy, to take more kind of the cost-effective value for money. This kind of, and the other one is particular. The governance role, there's also council expectation, because, hold on, okay, but briefly, okay, because what diversity, we always mention important, but what is real general diversity? We review the current, the council trading company, actually still not yet achieve all the expectation. I hope in this generally the diversity, so this direction, is pretty good, so I fully support this.
Kia ora, Councillor Chen. Thank you very much.
Sorry, too long.
Kei te pai. Councillor Coker.
This letter of expectations is a high-level strategic document which we've talked about, and it's to our company, to CCHL, and we need to, well, as we were told the other day, our companies have been formed to keep our politicians basically at arm's length. Now, there's a good reason for that because they're commercial activities. However, CCHL is 100% owned by council and by the people of Christchurch, and this should always be front of mind. And so what we say in this letter, I hope, is followed through with the statement of intent that CCHL write back to us, and that they follow through on what they say. And I really look forward to seeing that, and I really hope that the level of trust that Councillor Galloway talked about can be strengthened, because at the moment there is a little bit of distrust here. And so if we can work together and they can listen to us and we can listen to them, I think that would be good for the whole city.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Cotter.
Thank you. Look, I agree with most of what's been said, and I think this is sort of pitched in the right area now. The original document, we felt proud of ourselves because we had strengthened the governance and climate change sections of that. But today we've gone even further and we've strengthened their expectation around remuneration levels, and we've grown that out from just exercising restraint to actually narrowing the gap, and I'm really pleased that we've got that in now. But actually, this is very much about good relationships and building trust. And I don't agree with Councillor Coker. I think that the relationship's working very well. And this document outlines very clearly what we expect. Yeah, we are continually improving those relationships and our collaboration. But whenever we've requested the Chief Executive or any staff to attend our meetings, that's happened every time. And we've held many workshops with CCHL. And this letter of expectation outlines our wish to continue those so that we can ensure effective and aligned approach to our joint work streams. Look, regarding Yanni's amendment, resolution or motion there, I really support receiving the report on the governance manual, and hopefully we'll workshop that as well prior. And we'll be considering the pros and cons and appropriateness or not of using a statement of expectation in the future. And up to that point, I've got an open mind on this until we've done the work on that. But I really look forward to doing that work. And I'm also looking forward to the statement of intent coming back. But we're going forward with this. We are continually building good relationships with CCHL, and I'd like to thank our Chief Executive there too for the great work that you're doing there, and our staff working together. And thank staff for all the continued work on this. You've probably been pulling your hair out, but I feel that we've got it to a good place today. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Councillor Major.
Yep, the only thing I worry about is that we trust these guys, they'll do what we want. We just don't want to put the pressure on them so much that we remove their agility to do things that they do best. They know how to run their business and that. They don't need us to come, but I know we've got to have an overarching lens on them, but it just worries me that we might be trying to cramp their style too much. That's the only thing I'm a bit worried about. Other than that, it's all right.
Short and pithy. Any other councillors? Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. So to start off with, I just wanted to raise a few concerns about the letter of expectation. I appreciate some of the changes that have been made, but to me it still doesn't go far enough. It's not specific enough in the right places, and it still leaves open a huge room for interpretation. I just want to start off with the Auckland Council review, and appreciate that that's different. They are a different environment, but the principles of that review that have been identified, I think, are actually pretty sound. And just to quote you from that review, too much has been made of the notion that CCOs are commercial entities. They are not. Some of their activities are commercial in nature, and they must often exercise commercial judgment and business expertise, but at heart they are community-owned entities that exist to provide services to those who partly or wholly fund them, Aucklanders. As a result, they must be more conscious of the community expectations and appropriately balance commercial and public interests. It then goes on to say that there's significant improvements that can be made around how they get strategic direction. And that's really about being much more focused through a statement of expectation, to be very clear about things like the remuneration policies, to be really clear about the opportunity for the community to be consulted with in terms of significant strategic direction. There's a lot of other things in here, but at essence, the key concern I have is that for the last few years we've been putting in similar resolutions around remuneration, and we have simply not seen the restraint that is anywhere near the reality of what the ordinary person in our city goes through. We have seen some of our chief executives on close to $1 million, and within a short space of time, their salaries have just about doubled or increased by a third to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't think it's acceptable that for nearly 10 years, we've been trying to get a living wage, which was started by the cleaners from the airport coming into this chamber, asking to be paid a living wage so that they could support their family, that they still don't have a living wage, and we're told that there's no money and it's not affordable, and yet we've seen the chief executive's salary from the airport alone go up from 2016 from $650,000 a year to 2018 to $836,000 in the same time. You can't tell me there's not enough money to pay people a living wage in our city through our council companies. And despite the words that we've put in time and time again, we have not seen that happen. So we need to be much more directive. Finally, I'd just say, I cannot accept a letter of expectation that fails to mention a significant issue such as the Terrace Airport. The community deserve to know what our direction is to our holding company and to our companies about a significant development such as that. And I'm really disappointed that we do not have anything in there that expresses a view.
Thank you. Councillor Scandrett, are you standing by?
Thank you, James. I guess for me, the letter of expectation is such an important document with regards to the directors on companies have first and foremost, their obligation is to the company, and the companies have an obligation to do what's best for Christchurch. Through CCHL, we hope that they do this, but we need that contact. I think we need better contact, and that's been really highlighted, I think, with the Terrace discussion. But when we get these, and they are sales pitches, we need a 360-degree look at the proposals that are coming up for what is best for Christchurch. Because as councillors, our sole purpose is what is best for Christchurch. And I believe that there are differences there, and that cannot happen. And I think that through the letter of expectation, we must make sure that that is clear, that we need that good expectation. We need the sales pitch, but the realistic outcomes that could happen with those side issues. And that's been missing for me in the briefings that we've had. And I hope that this document and in the future will lay that out very clearly. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Kewen, do you wish to make a comment?
Oh, it's pretty much all been said, and I got my little one-liner in there about closing the gap, so good on me.
Kia ora. Before I go to the mover of the motion, just from the chair, I want to underline the fact that we are progressing the process of dealing with our company CCHL by the governance manual discussion that we're going to be having on the 25th of February, and that's really important, an important output from today's debate and discussion. So I'm pleased about that, and I appreciate that, Councillor Johansson, given your passion for the kaupapa that you fully and believe in, that you were willing to leave it at that, and we'll work on it in the near future. So I also want to thank the staff for all the work that they've done to date for this. Much appreciated, and particularly the work that was done today, because we had to do a few amendments. And to that I'll add my thanks to my colleagues here as members for being able to negotiate and add those amendments to the original motion. So with that, I say thank you very much, and I'm supporting this motion as it sits on the table. And to the mover, who has the last word?
8 minutes, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, no.
Not 8 minutes, I will note that you could have had 8 minutes, but you were generous enough
hold them all to the end.
to just have the 3 at the end.
I'd like to thank you, James, for your chairing, actually. It's been excellent. And also my colleagues, I think this has been a good discussion. We have ended up at quite a good point, but obviously I think we need to improve the process to get to this point, and I think it will get better as we move forward. I think, there's a few decisions we make during the term that really affect, I guess, the direction of the city. And the letter of expectation is one of those decisions. So it's actually a really important piece of work that we do, and we need to make sure that we do it correctly and actually indicate what we want our companies to do through the holding company. So it is actually good to have this in a public setting, this debate, because we all want our companies to be successful, and we need them to be successful. But success should not be measured just by the size of a dividend. I believe our companies need to deliver a public good socially, environmentally, culturally and economically. And one of the things I do not think it's important, we should not be micromanaging our companies. But what we need to do is ensure that CCHL, our holding company, is travelling the same pathway that we're travelling, and that is what the letter of expectation does. And that is why it's extremely important. And there's opportunities throughout the term, throughout the year, where we have formal reviews, and we need to use them wisely. I'm happily support where we're at. I believe we can do better as a big step up from where we've been, and I think it's good having this public debate. So thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you. And I just hope that if the holdings company is travelling in the same direction as us, travelling at least in an EV or possibly on bikes. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour, and the motion is as we see it above me. I beg your pardon?
One and then two.
1 and then 2, yes. So for number 1, I put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Would you like that noted? Councillor Johansson opposed.
And Councillor
And Councillor Scandrett, were you opposed or?
Yes.
Is that
for it? Yes. Aye.
Okay. Aye. Right. Okay. Thank you. I'll put the second part of the of this motion, number 2 there. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? I declare the motion carried unanimously. With that, that is our business for today. Thank you, staff. Thank you, ball boys and linesmen. And thank you to Councillor Cotter, who threw me under the bus with 5 minutes' notice to be chairing this meeting. And thank you to all my colleagues, as I say, members for today. So I'll finish the meeting with a karakia whakamutunga, and that is te tapu o tātou kōrero. That is, our talk is finished. And we bring the mana back to the whare by saying, ka whakahokia ki te whare. Kia ora tātou.